Okay, so for those of you that are already logged in, if somebody can type in the chat that I'm not just talking to myself, that would be really helpful. I think Laura was going to be doing an intro, but I think her session's running a little bit late. So if everybody can hear me okay, amazing, thank you. I am going to hopefully share my screen and this works because technology, I still can't get used to it. It still technically hates me. So let's share my screen and I won't be able to see your chat. So if this all goes terribly wrong, somebody's just going to have to butt in with a microphone and just tell me I'm all on my own, all by myself. So thank you for coming to this session. My name is Jill Quick and I am the co-founder of the Colouring In Department. And I've chosen this session today to focus on using Google Analytics to show the value, in particular, to your content assets and your PR. Now, this kind of reminds me of the story of how I got into Google Analytics. You may sympathize with it, hopefully. I was in a meeting probably about 10, 12 years ago, something like that. And I was just getting into Google Analytics, but I hadn't quite got my head around all the nuts and bolts and how I could really get the most out of it. And I was having a conversation with our director of sales, and he made me so cross because he said, look, we really, like the sales team, we're going to be having a conversation with the MD to see if we can get rid of 2 of your team because we don't think marketing does anything. Like, yeah, you're there doing PR and SEO, whatever that is, and social media, but you don't really drive the conversions. And I'm looking at him thinking, you cheeky bugger, like there's so much that we do as a department, but I had no data to back it up. It was just an opinion. And as you know, you can't go into a boardroom and start fighting for budget lines and your staff if you just have an opinion. So I was that mad. I accidentally fell into analytics because of that conversation. I wanted to prove to him that the beautiful, creative, marvelous work that we were doing was actually making a difference to the bottom line. And that's essentially why I'm going to be banging the drum on quite a few different topics and themes within Google Analytics, because even if you are the creative, or you're the copywriter, or you think that you shouldn't really care that much about the numbers, I really want you to care a little bit about the numbers. And of course, analytics is a proxy for people, so it won't tell you the entire picture, but we have to get better at being able to fight our corner, because if somebody gives us, say, 10 grand to write a load of content and create a load of assets and distribute them across our various marketing channels, if I can't turn around and say, these links assisted in conversions, these links are driving sales for the business, I don't get my budget. It is so powerful to be able to have a conversation with people and know what's driving sales instead of just sitting there going, I'm not sure. I think it's the videos. I think it might be the SEO. I think it might be this. That doesn't wash in these conversations with the people that sign our checks and keep us in a job. Now, the things that we're going to talk about today have primarily come out of the audits that I've done and reviews that I've done for our clients. And I've done about 200-ish Google Analytics audits over my career. And the same themes keep coming up again and again and again. And especially when we're having conversations with people that are saying, hey, Jill, how can I confirm my budget? How can I keep my team as they are? Well, these are the things that we're going to focus on. So the first one is going to be talking about tracking. Very, very easy to do, very easy to get wrong. So if you are distributing any content, you are pushing your marketing out there, you're trying to build those links and improve your SEO, whatever it is that you're trying to do. If you are not tracking things properly, you're done for. So we're going to talk through just what is the fundamentals and common mistakes that I see and how you can fix it. We're then going to talk about content grouping. Now, for me, out of all the audits I've done, I probably see them maybe about 6 times out of the 200 odd audits that I've done. They are massively underused. So I'm going to show you what they are, how you can use them beyond your behavior reports, and a little hack of how you can use them in Data Studio, which is so powerful. And I've got a use case. I've had to blur out the data so I don't void my terms and conditions with a client. But it's a really powerful case study that if you are in the content space and you are writing, or you're in that department where somebody stuff that you can fight for that budget. We're then going to talk about micro and macro conversions, because you can have 20 goals in your reporting views and I still only see one or maybe a couple, or they're not tracking properly. And a little bit of a hint here, quite a few of those micro conversions are going to be the content that you are producing. And then to round it all off, we're going to be focusing on assisted conversion, this concept that the work that you do, and for some people in the marketing department, the work that you're doing, the stage of awareness of your customer or the section of the customer journey that you're focusing on, it may not be the channel that scores the goal. So how can we show the value of that particular asset or that marketing channel across the customer journey? So we're going to focus now, as I said, on tracking. Now, tracking for me is really, really important. And for those of you that don't know, these are just the little extra bits of information that we can add on to our URLs. And that information is going to be passed on to Google Analytics to give it a bit more of an idea of where that content has come from. Because at the end of the day, Google Analytics is a JavaScript program. And as with all computer programs, you kind of need to give it a bit of a helping hand and tell it what to do and how things work. Otherwise, it's going to make some mistakes for you. Now, most of you have probably used this. It's the URL builder. And I think this is where the mistakes can happen when I'm looking at tagging, that people get their sources and mediums mixed up. The computer program is just going to say no and put it in the wrong bucket. People make up their own terms that don't exist, and we're going to talk about what that means when we look at the core reporting API. But because people can just whack this up and just create a link, the problem is they forget what they've done. And I've been folly to this as well. I created a load of links for an email campaign. I think it was like 80 email triggers. And this is a browser, so it doesn't store all the URLs that you build. I didn't copy and paste them into a document. And then at the end of the month, my team went, so what was the name of that content? I was like, oh crap, I've forgotten the name of all the campaigns and what we labeled it. So I had to manually go in and get it, which is a nightmare. But these tagging requirements, these UTM parameters, are going to help you understand how people find you. That acquisition report, which I think for most of us is one of the go-to reports in Google Analytics, because we want to know, how did people find our website? How did they find our shop front? And depending on what your job role is and how you've distributed your content, you're going to be looking at that channel grouping, that default channel grouping, and understanding how many users have come in a particular time frame and have they kept me in a job or not. Now, the thing with our tags is, as I said, they're very easy to set up. My 7-year-old can like create one. If I just said, hey Ethan, just go on here and just like type in Pokemon or something, he would get it done. But these are where the mistakes come from. So you need to make sure that you get the right UTM parameters correct. So the first thing is to understand what we mean by the term medium. Now, a medium is a big, broad buckets for your marketing channels. So email is a medium, organic is a medium, social is a medium. When we talk about the source, it's specifically where does the link live? So if my medium is organic, the source would be Google, Yahoo, Bing. If the source was email, sorry, if the medium was email, then the source would be the name of the database. So it'd be something like newsletter database, onboarding database, that kind of thing. You might want to give it a campaign name. So if you are having several different assets that are being presented across different mediums and within that lots of different sources, but you don't want to go into the reports and kind of pull in different sources from everywhere. You could just give it all the same name, and it's like having a bow tied around all of your different marketing channels and sources, so that you can go into the analytics program and say, just show me everybody from August 2020, something like that, and then it's easier to find that information. A little gentle reminder, because things change and things happen. Please check the URLs that you are sending people to. I still get really cross when I get an email campaign and I click on the link and it says, oh, this link doesn't work. And then you get an email to say, oh, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. Or you click on a link for a Facebook ad. This really winds me up. And I'm like, oh, that's a lovely top. Click on it and it takes me to a completely different product page. And I am lazy. I am not going to go and dig around to find the top. I'm just going to abandon it, and you've just wasted your resources, time and money. So make sure you check your links and make sure that they all work. And then the last bit, which I think is kind of underused, but I love using this because the content parameter for me to further slice and dice my data. So I'll give you a use case. Let's say you have you've got a PR piece on a landing page somewhere on somebody else's website, but you've added a call to action at the bottom and there's an image in there as well, but they go to the same page. So let's just say they go to your home page. You could create, if you wanted to, 2 different UTM parameters here where you say the medium is referral, the source is the name of the website, the campaign, PR 2020. And then when it comes to the content, instead of having one UTM parameter, you could create 2, and one could say this is the call to action and the other one could say this is the image, and it's going to give you more information to understand how those users were interacting with those assets. I've done this with email campaigns as well. If I've got several links on an email campaign and I want to know which bit people clicked on, it makes it a lot easier to get some insights. Now, UTM parameters, dead easy, can go wrong, as we said, but they are powering the default channel grouping report, which is the acquisition report. And there's a core reporting API that is working to understand where your marketing channels are coming from. Now, I'm pretty confident that none of you have laid awake at night and gone, I wonder how Google's core reporting API works to categorize my channels. I did, because I wanted to get back at sales. Like, I was so cross. I was going through every bit of information I could find to really just bring him down with the numbers that we were a very fantastic team, and we deserve to have all the praise and all the budget. However, this core reporting API, I'd like you to think of it as a bouncer. If you ever remember the days when we used to go out, I know that's coming on the cards now after lockdown. But sometimes you'd go to a venue and there'd be a bouncer on the door and they'd have a little list. And if you were on the list, they'd put you in a certain part of the room. This core reporting API is very similar. So you'll have traffic coming in from, say, email, and this bouncer is going to be looking at them and going, let's see if I can identify you. And if it can work out where you're from with the parameters that's on your clothing, it will put you in the right part of the house, so to speak. Now, this core reporting API, this is the little list that the bouncer is going through. And because it's a computer program, there is no empathy, there is no wiggle room. If it does not match exactly as the system defines, it gets thrown into different buckets. So as an example here, because we're going to focus on email because it's the quickest one to go through. The channel is email, the medium is email, but you have to say in your UTM parameters for all of your email campaigns, the medium exactly matches lowercase email. If you put a big E in it, a capital E, it's going to go, oh, I don't have that on my list. And you will get put into the other bucket, which I like to call the man drawer data of hell. We've got this drawer at home where my husband's got like just a load of trash, really. Keys, currency, things that don't work. And it's just where my idea is when it comes to data, it's where data goes to die. And it's just really hard to unpick all of it. If you put things like email marketing or newsletter, the computer's like, no, yeah, I don't have any of that. So wrong bucket it goes to. And this is a very specific list. Now, this is found on Google's developer guides. But if you go into Google Analytics, it'll just say email equals system defined, and you have to jog off and find it yourself. Now, I have got a resource that goes through all of this, so you can go back and look at this later. But the main thing here is this rule book is so specific and so rigid that if you get it wrong, this report that we're looking at, the default channel grouping, the core reporting API that powers this report of how people find you, it means that you may have visitors that are in the wrong channel, the wrong bucket, which means you may have overvalued or undervalued marketing channels that you're using to distribute your messages and your content marketing. And you will be wiping the tears off your keyboard if it is wrong, because you can't reprocess data that's already been processed. There is no magic Google Analytics wand that's going to fix that for you. So giving you an example of why it's important to track things correctly so that we all can understand what's working for us or not. If you don't tag your email, so if you just put in the hyperlink to go to the home page, go to the product page or whatever, if you don't use the UTM parameter specifically and tag it correctly, depending on where I open it, it will go into the wrong bucket. So if I open this in Gmail, so if I'm logged into a browser and I open up your email and I'm like, oh, shoes, I click on it and go to your website, Google Analytics is going to grab any information, that bouncer on the door is going to get any information to understand where are you from and where do I put you in the room with all the other people that look like you. So if I've opened it in Gmail, it's going to think that it's a referral. It's going to think it's a website giving you a link. So the medium will be referral and the source, where does the link live? Mail.gmail or mail.yahoo or something like that. And that's the wrong bucket. We wanted it to go in the email bucket. Now, if I open this in a desktop situation, so think about B2B offices. Remember offices? Remember when we used to commute? And you'd be in the company, you'd fire up your PC and you'd have Outlook, but it would be hard locked onto your computer. If I click on that link, there will be no parameters added to that URL because I've not opened it in a browser for it to understand what's happening, which means the bounce is going to go, oh, direct traffic, go in the direct bucket. And I actually got hired by a company once to go into their analytics and find just cause to sack their marketing team that were responsible for content and email production, because every time they logged in to their account, it just said direct was like 80% of their traffic because it was primarily a B2B audience and nobody knew what was happening. So this is very, very serious. So with email in particular, and out of all those rules, and you can go and have a look at them later, you have to put email medium equals lowercase email. Otherwise that bouncer is a little bit slow. We'll put it in the wrong bucket, which we don't want. So making sure the medium is correct, make sure that your sources are correct, and don't fragment your data. You need to be consistent. So if you're tagging your source for your emails as newsletter database, and then the next person that does it calls it newsletter data, then the computer program thinks they're two separate sources. So we need to be consistent in how we stick to the rules of the default channel grouping core reporting API. And you need to be on the same page as everybody to make sure that the sources that you're using, the links where they live, they're all the same. So if it's newsletters, the source is going to be newsletter database, your premium subscribers, that kind of thing. Now, to show you what this looks like, I'm really sad, and I've got nothing else to do when my kids are driving me mad with homeschooling, that I like having a look at UTM parameters. It's my fun thing to do. Don't hate me. I'm hoping that makes me sound not actually very sad. Poor me. This is the wrong thing to do. So I clicked on a link. I've taken the website name out because it's I don't want to be mean and call somebody out. But I clicked on it and it said source Salesforce. And I'm like, okay, the database, they're using Salesforce. Personally, this is quite a big business. If I was doing this and I was distributing content, I would probably be saying this is the newsletter database. These are our high spending customers, thinking a little bit about recency, frequency, value proposition, that kind of thing. But here's where they went wrong. Medium equals uppercase email. Oh God, so close, so close. All that traffic is just all going to go into the other bucket. So some poor soul is going to be looking in the acquisition report. And sometimes this is somebody maybe more senior than you or somebody that doesn't really get into the weeds, so to speak. And they will literally take the first number in the report and run with it. So they'll look at it and go, oh, email's not doing very well. Let's cut that budget off. Here's the right way to do it. Source, newsletter. Thank you very much. Medium, lowercase, email. Fantastic. That is going into the correct bucket. So I want you all to have a look at your acquisition reports and the marketing that you're doing, the content that you're distributing, and sense checking that the channels and the sources that you are tagging is in fact correct. So checking the system defined rule book. And if it isn't as it's written on that system defined rule book, Google's going to put it in the wrong bucket, guys. So you really need to have a look at this. And I can't stress this enough, people. You want to understand this because in Google Analytics, there are 7 attribution models. It just so happens that for pretty much everything north of conversions, it's running on 100% of the credit goes to the last non-direct channel. They get all the glory. So football's back on now, isn't it? So I always use football as the analogy for this. It's like the person that scores the goal, you just go, yeah, the rest of the team, you can just go home. I'm going to pay all the money to the dude that scores the goal. You can't win with that. You need people to kick the ball, pass the ball, start it, that kind of thing. So if you've got customer journeys where you're doing a lot of PR, you're doing a lot of organic stuff that's really at the very beginning of the customer journey and they don't convert until the very end, you need to make sure from these marketing channels are actually attributed correctly with the right tagging. Otherwise, the stuff that we talk about at the end of this presentation, you won't be able to do it because you need to have clean, valid data in order to do that. So, scaring you all with, or maybe boring you all, I don't know, content groupings. So we're tracking our marketing correctly. We now need to think about, in my humble opinion, one of the most underused features in Google Analytics, people. And I want more of you to use this because I have been in a situation, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, where I've logged into analytics and my boss has come in and they've gone, Jill, how many people looked at the blog this month? And how many people are looking at the blog pages and the product pages and the campaign pages? And where's the share going? And I log in to the site content report, go to all pages, and I scooch you down to the bottom. And this was just an example for one of our accounts. And there's 52,505 pages. Now, I don't know about you, but I am certainly not going to waste my time and possibly days of work exporting this, trying to manually count it. And I have seen teams in the past manually count the URLs to work out roughly what's happening on the account. There's a better way, people. I'd like to introduce you to content groupings. You can have 5 content groupings per reporting view. Now, this is the Google demo account. So if you haven't checked it out, there is a free account. Just Google Analytics demo account. They have a shop because, you know, Google doesn't make enough money. So you can go and buy merchandise from Google if you want. And they've given access to that shop's analytics. So you can go and kind of have a bit of a sandbox play around. You can't break anything, but it's really good if you don't have the data to kind of show what it looks like to show your boss. So they've done 3 content groupings on here, and they've done one by brand, one by product, one by clothing. I'll talk you through how you do that in a second. But what I want you to look at is, instead of looking at 52,505 pages of data, you could just say, just show me all the products, please. And it's going to group. It's exactly as it says on the tin. It's going to suck them all in together and group them. So you can go, yes, bags are taking 16% of the page views across the website, or a certain amount have gone to Office. And because all of this is a hyperlink, you can just click on the link. So I can click on bags, and it's going to open up all of the URLs that match the rule book to say this belongs to the category of bags. Now, the way that I like to use content groupings, there's 3 that I think everybody should be looking at, especially number 1. So you can have 5. I would always use one for the website navigation. So I would want to group it as to, here's the home page, these are the service pages, the blog pages, that kind of thing. And then if you have multiple products, you could have one like the Google Analytics demo account. This is bags, this is shoes, this is apparel. And if you've got multiple brands on your site, like the Google demo account, you can go, this is Google, this is YouTube, this is Android. And it makes it a lot easier when you are logging into your account to understand all the content, all the website pages that you have on your site. Where is the traffic going to, without having to manually count all those damn URLs, which nobody's got time for. Now, the thing with content groupings, you literally just need to know what your URL structure is. That's the hardest part. And for most of us, we know our websites pretty well. In fact, they're quite personal to us, aren't they? They're like your babies. And if somebody can't use your website, it's like saying you've got an ugly baby. I get really offended when people say that they don't like websites, because you put a lot of time and effort into websites. They can suck the marketing soul out of you because they're quite labor intensive. There are 3 ways that you can create content groupings. One is rule set, and that is if the page contains / is the home page. If the page contains water, it's a water page, that kind of thing. If you have quite a busy site with lots and lots of variations, you might need to use the content via extraction, and that's just regex. So if you have like page contains asterisk tops, then it's a top, that kind of thing. And the third one is tracking code, where people manually put the tracking code on the site. But if I'm honest, I don't see many people using that. But here's one I made earlier, Blue Peter style. So you go into your view settings. I like to do this in a test view first because I want to make sure it's working. They only start creating the data the day that you create them. So I would go in and essentially I will pull up the website onto a board. I get some post-it notes, and a little bit like card sorting, if you've ever done any user experience activities like that, I'll just get a load of post-it notes and say, right, what are the sections of the website? We've got an about us section, we've got the home page, we've got the blog, and then I'll go through and work out what is the URL structure. Then I'll build it into an Excel document, and then I'll go into Google Analytics and create it. Excuse me, the weather is making my throat really dry. Sorry about that. So for this one, I said, right, for the about pages, it's basically set on a load of rules. If the page exactly matches /contact and or the page starts with digital marketing trainers, it's then about us. Hit done, scroll down to the next bit, and rinse and repeat until you've done what you want it to do. Now, one of the things that I really like about content groupings is it doesn't just save me a crap ton of time when I'm looking at my behavior report, but you can also use content groupings as secondary dimensions. So I've used this when I'm looking at my acquisition reports, and provided everything's tagged and bagged correctly, I will then add a secondary dimension for things like the website navigation to get a better feel about the places of the website in broad terms, in those big categories, my traffic is going to. So I might look at organic and go, wow, organic's really into Google and Android, whereas my referral traffic is taking them to a different part of the website. So it's really useful to use as a secondary dimension. You can also use them to build segments. So if I have created sections of my website with lots of content. So let's say you've done some product pages, some case studies, some webinars, you've got all sorts of content going on, and you categorize them in your content groupings because you've got a URL structure to identify these different pages. If I want to know more about that particular audience, I could just build a segment and say, show me users that visited the blog, and then go to audience and work out how old are they, the devices, the countries, that kind of thing, and then the marketing channels that they're coming from, and then did they convert or not. And this is going to give me information when I'm looking at improving my strategies to drive people to content pages in the future. And if you can build a segment, you can build a remarketing list, which is always handy. Now, something that I got a tip from Jerry from Now Rise at 7, because they only create the data the day that you create them. And I was like, oh man, like I love content grouping, but I hate that you can't go back in time. And he's like, you can, Jill, you use case statements in Data Studio. I lifted my drawer up off the floor and it works on the same rule book. So I just took what I had in my view settings and just typed them in to Data Studio, and I got something like this. So I've had to blur out the data so that you can't see the company, but this was for a drinks company, and they had a massive marketing team, and in particular a very large communications team, and their job was create content, create assets that they've repurposed on different marketing channels to drive them back to the website, and they needed to prove what was working or not, because the board was like, do we cut your budget, do we get rid of them, do we make them redundant? And this little Stegosaurus thing here, we did a content grouping on the brand. So thankfully their URL structure was so lovely. So I'm drinking water, we'll just say if the URL contained the word water, it was the water brand. If it contained tea, it was the tea brand, and so on and so forth. Now when I did this to this company, and they had a massive marketing budget as well, so they weren't messing around with just a couple of pennies here. This Stegosaurus, let's say this was the water brand, I sat in the room and I'm like, who's responsible for the Stegosaurus? Like, what's going on here? This girl puts her hand up. I'm like, what were you doing? Because all the other brands at the bottom, and here you are just owning it. And then what happened? Why did it die? Why did the dinosaur go extinct? And she went, oh, I was doing a lot on Instagram, and I'm like, it's working. Like, you got loads of traffic, and we built segments, and they were doing the thing that you wanted them to do. She just couldn't prove it. And they had so many website pages, she couldn't manually go in and count all of them. So it just got left. So I said to them, look, you guys need to, well, one, learn whatever she's doing, because more of that, please. But also content groupings could be used historically. So you can go back and apply this to data and do it in a way that an idiot can look at that and go, oh, we should do more of that, shouldn't we? Yeah, you absolutely should. That's how the conversation should go. And with content groupings and case statement, you can do lovely things like this, which makes it a lot easier to prove what you're doing is improving the bottom line. Now, quickly, as we go through on the concept of conversion. So we're tracking our marketing correctly. We've categorized the marketing that's on the website in terms of the content groupings by navigation. We're doing it by brands, by product, whatever else you want to do, you do you. But we are in the business, in marketing at least. We should be driving some sort of profitable customer interactions. And most of the time when I'm doing an analytics or training, there's either no goals, but probably about 40% of the stuff that I look at, it might be different for the people, but I'd say it's about 40% don't have any goals at all. And then if they do have any goals, they just have the one big thing that you wanted them to do. And I think that's such a shame, because there's so many other interactions of somebody showing that they're slowly giving more shits about you to do more of the things that you want them to do. So if I was a lead gen site, like, my main goal is I want you to fill out the damn form so I can give it to sales and we can start that journey and try and get you to be a customer. But the micro conversions for that could be, do you know what? They read some content, they downloaded some ungated content, a PDF that just downloaded in their browser, or maybe they watched a video, maybe they checked out your social media pages, they looked at your staff's LinkedIn pages, maybe they went to a specific product page or a campaign page, and then they signed up. And to show that one person's macro is another person's micro conversions, if you're an e-commerce brand, I want your money. Like, I don't care if you sign up, you know, I mean, it's like, it's okay if you sign up to my database, but really, I just want you to buy the shoes or the tops or whatever it is that you're selling. But again, those micro conversions can be things like, I checked out your social media account, I signed up to your newsletter, I added to basket, and then I bought the product. Now, you can have 20 goals per reporting view. And when you start looking at your content in particular, you'll find that a lot of the time your content marketing is a micro conversion of some sort. You know, if I'm spending money on videos and webinars and content and production for podcasts and things like that, I want to know if it's happened, and I want to understand what that conversion rate is across the customer journey and how my marketing, my content is working to drive those users to do more of the thing that I want them to do. I mean, imagine how powerful it would be to go, oh, the video conversion rate is 9%, and people that watch a video are 2 times more likely to spend money than if they didn't watch a video. You're going to get your marketing budget to create more videos because you're using data to back up your opinions of what's actually happening. Now, I got asked this a while ago where somebody said, well, why would you have 20 goals? That seems a bit like Captain Overkill. And I disagree. I love using all of the goals. And this is one for a company that was marketing to schools. And we use the full 20 goals at our disposal. And what I like about using 20 goals in particular is I can go into my acquisition report, everything's tagged and bagged correctly. And instead of looking at all of my goals, there's a drop down and I can select all goals or specifically look at individual conversions. So I can have a better idea of how my marketing channels and my distribution channels are working to driving those particular micro and macro conversions. So it's really useful for me to display it in a way that shows the customer journey and also acknowledges that it's using in the acquisition report in particular, the attribution model that 100% of the credit goes to the last non-direct channel. So sometimes this is quite common. PPC gets all the damn glory. So you log into the account and you go, how many people filled out the form? PPC, 3% conversion rate. Organic was 0.1. Organic shit. Don't put any money into it. Thank you. Good night. And then what happens is a couple of months down the line, somebody's gone, where have the sales gone? What's happened? well, you basically turn the tap off for all of the stuff at the beginning, the PR, the email, the social, the organic, that was getting them to understand what the brand name was, for them to go into Google, type in the brand name, and then find the ad and convert. That doesn't happen unless you've got lots of other things in play. But understanding the micro and macro conversions and understanding what that channel's role actually is, you could say, look, organic's never really going to get them to fill out the form, but man, it does get them to play the videos, right? So let's use that to our advantage. I would use that to optimize or brainstorm ideas of how I could improve that particular marketing channel. And you can use this with Data Studio, where you can heat map this. And again, it's about getting data into a position where you are making it really easy for somebody to look at this and not ask any questions. So you'd have a nice title where which traffic sources drive conversions. You'd have your sources on the left, or whatever it is that you want to have to identify something's working or not. And these micro and macro conversions heat mapped, somebody can look at this and go, I see what's going on there. I see what's happening. And it just makes those conversations a little bit easier to digest. Okay, so last part of the presentation, attribution. I think I talk about attribution and multi-channel funnels again, I want more people to use it, so I'm going to carry on talking about it. Our job is to track things properly, to understand what's happening on the website. We want to track all of our conversions, but there's a report in the multi-channel funnels report, which is right at the bottom in Google Analytics, and it's called assisted conversions. And this to me is, it's a bit like thinking about the football analogy, where instead of just giving all the credit to the person that scores the goal, you're acknowledging the role of the other players and giving them a little sticker, a little gold star for a well done, to understand what their role is. And if you've got your conversion set up, so again, you can drill down this report to your all goals or your individual goals to see what's happening, but we can use it to see all of these different marketing channels, all these different sources, all the content that you're producing. Does it assist in a conversion as well? And you can report on both sides of the coin. So this is something that you can explore to do. I've got a blog post where I go into this in a lot of detail that we'll post in the chat. But instead of just reporting on, here's all the traffic that came from paid, organic, direct, email, and whatever, and the boss will look at it and go, oh, email only brought in 135,000. Doesn't seem like a lot. You could bring in the assisted conversions from the multi-channel funnels report and go, but wait, there's more. Email also assisted in £165,000 worth of sales. So it starts to bring more value to some of the channels that are particularly the early stages of awareness, which are typically, broadly speaking, don't fight with me on Twitter about this afterwards, social media, PR, some organic terms. You want to show that there is an assisted conversion somewhere down the line for it. If there isn't on both sides of the coin, then that marketing channel, your content's not working for you, and you should have another look for it. But as well as looking at the different marketing channels, one thing that I like to do is look at specific URLs on a page. Now, when you go into a report, on the top of the chart, you've got your dimensions, the little blue rows of text. If you click on Other and type in landing page URL, or for those of you that are in PR, you could put full referral path, and it could show you specific landing pages that maybe you've got coverage on or you've got some content on. And it will show you the assisted conversions for those particular pages, because the same rule applies, that 100% of the credit goes to the page that converted. So sometimes the blog content and the other content doesn't show the true value of what you could be doing. And everybody, again, is sad and wiping tears off their keyboards and things like that, which is never really good. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And, oh, Laura's back. Hello, Laura. I don't know if Laura's coming back on again, or do I bid you all adieu? Oh, there we go.
Sorry about that. I think
How are you?
The next keynote is starting over in here, so I think we're going to get kicked out. But no, there was a question from Charlotte Jarvis on the best way to set up content groupings for blog pages, as they'll all have different URLs and different text in the content.
So I would look at doing some sort of regular expression. So looking at the content via extraction, if you've got a particular set of keywords. So maybe it's something like your URLs start with how to, or specific depends on what you're optimizing the page for, then I would look at having a content grouping for blogs. And then if the page has a regular expression of including this particular keyword in the URL, then it's this type of blog. They could also look at custom dimensions. If you're going on our Colouring in Department website, I've got a custom dimensions explainer. It might be easier, she says, to push a custom dimension to that URL to say who wrote it and what the content
And
type is
also,
for.
Charlotte, for reference, Jill is the most helpful and patient person ever, I can testify. So if you do get stuck, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to follow up if it's not contained in the guides on their website. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Jill. That was awesome. Then. Very, very helpful.
Cool. Thank you for having me. I'll speak to you all soon.